from police, local police, as well as federal law enforcement into the mass deportation effort, which is not targeted toward criminals. It's not targeted toward fraudsters. It's targeted towards the people who are living their lives peacefully in the United States and contributing to their communities.
Thank you. We know the surge has had huge economic costs. Locally, the Minneapolis Economic Development Director estimates the city is losing $10 to $20 million every week. Estimates are it's costing about $18 million a week, the taxpayers of this country, for the ICE agents that are there, for all the hotels, for all the extra hours of local police, for all the jail time. And you explained what's really happening with the numbers, of which I support, going after the worst of the worst. I support going after the violent offenders, but this is all costing huge amounts of money for the people of Minnesota and the people across the nation. Can you discuss the administration's actions and how they are hurting our economy and costing taxpayers?
Well, like I said in my prepared remarks, in Minnesota, the immigrant population has reduced the deficits at the federal, state, and local level by almost $140 billion over the last 30 years. Even if you look at the illegal immigrant population nationwide, it's about a $1.7 trillion reduction in deficits over the last 30 years. And it's because these people work, because they are increasing the economic activity, because they're providing goods and services to us as Americans that we have these positive economic effects.
Thank you. Ms. Gambler, the data analysis from the firm Optum identified widespread vulnerabilities in the state's Medicaid program recently that allowed questionable billing to go undetected. Can you discuss what GAO recommends to states, and you can do it in writing later as well, to strengthen these programs? Clearly, so much work has to be done in the state of Minnesota on how these grants were allowed, and then, of course, how they were monitored afterward. And I wish that's what we were focusing on instead of indicting an entire population group, which includes police officers, firefighters, doctors, nurses. Please answer. Thanks.
Sure, I'll answer briefly, Senator, and happy to provide more information afterward. But GAO has issued a fraud risk framework that lays out leading practices that agencies should take to help upfront prevent, detect, identify, and then address and mitigate fraud risks in federal programs. And so those leading practices are really helpful for agencies to adopt practices relating to conducting fraud risk assessments, making sure they have a strategy in place, and then making sure that they're targeting resources and their anti-fraud activities to the areas of greatest risk. And those types of leading practices really help an agency have in place a process for managing fraud risks at a strategic level.
Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing, and thank you for the witnesses for being here today. You know, I think one of the reasons this is so important is because we keep seeing fraud in the news every single day, and I want to thank people in the Trump administration that are working so hard to make sure we are accountable to taxpayers. And I know that many are examining what happened over the last administration, at least in terms of immigration and how taking in a conservative number is 11 million, but some say up to 20 million people in such a short amount of time.
You have a live look in on the Senate floor right now. It is a Judiciary Committee meeting on fraud, and you saw some immigration questions in there as well. David Beer is an immigration expert, and it was really good timing with Senator Klobuchar asking him questions.
Yeah, we caught it right when she was asking him questions. I believe we jumped in right when she was saying something about the Twin Cities losing something like $10 to $20 million every week since this ICE surge, I believe is the number that Amy Klobuchar just said.
Yeah.
Startling.
Yeah, it is. It is. And Governor Walz also talked about the economic impact of Operation Metro Surge here in the Twin Cities. He spoke earlier today. We're going to replay back that speech that he gave at the market at Malcolm Yards in full during today's show. I guess just to run down everything else coming up today, Tim Blotz is going to join us to break down that Walz speech. And then an Olympics update. Minnesota got its first medals, 3 medals for Minnesotans today.
Yeah, a lot of medal action for Minnesota. We've been talking about Minnesota's representing strong in the Olympics in curling and skiing.
Yep.
And I think the women's hockey team is playing right now.
Yes.
And last time I checked, they were kicking some butt.
Yes, over Canada, who's the second favorite going into the tournament. So this is a precursor to potentially the final match here. And
it's not just a precursor. I mean, a little spoiler. I'll talk about this a little bit more when we do talk about the Olympics. That is the only gold medal match that's ever happened in women's hockey.
Wow.
No other country has won world championship gold or Olympic gold aside from the U.S. or Canada. That's it. It's more than a precursor. This is dang near a spoiler of what the gold medal match is going to be.
That's crazy that it's only those two. I mean, there's hockey in Sweden and Finland and Norway.
Think about the men's field. It's just there's so much parity. There's all these different countries that you have to look out for. But in the women's field, it's a more tight race. It's literally the U.S. and Canada, and everybody else is way behind.
Way behind them. Yeah. Well, we'll see if the American women are able to win today. We're going to talk to a person that can tell us what happens to people after they're released from ICE detention facilities. Yesterday we talked about the Whipple Building, and we're going to talk to Kelly Morrison about the Whipple Building here shortly. But what happens when they get flown down to Texas from Whipple and then they get released out into the world again? Really?
Yeah, for sure. Because it seems like kind of like the national media has kind of moved on, but obviously here in the Twin Cities we're still feeling the effects, and it's still happening. Like it's still happening. Even places like us are not reporting on it as much, but it's still happening. It's still prominent. I think a lot of people we only think about the beginning part of this process, but then what happened? Exactly what you just said. What happens to these people after they're detained? And when they come back.
Yes, yeah, and there's countless stories. 5-year-old Liam Ramos is an example of this, among others. So we'll get into that, and then we'll do a little Black History Month segment on people you should know for Black History Month.
Yeah, sure. I've been trying to pitch it. Just trying to say like, hey, let's just talk about Black history, spotlight. Because the U.S. public education system. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, it was slavery. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and we're in the modern day. You miss out on so much Black history. I mean, Black people are integral to the foundation of this country. We're literally in its DNA. So I just wanted to say, I think it's something we're going to try to do every single day is, a person, an event, something tied to Black history to celebrate Black History Month. Yeah,
this is great. And we are celebrating Black history all month long in the month of February, as we do every year. February 10th. We'll get into that later in today's show. Let's get into some headlines. Max, you love to travel. Mall of America has rolled out a new airport parking option. It's the cheapest way to get to the airport now. If you want to park your car overnight, $12 a night. If you want to park at MSP, it's $30 a night. But I know the best way to get to the airport is really the light rail. I mean, if you could time it correctly.
Absolutely, because the light rail, but you could just hop right on the light rail from the Mall of America.
That's right.
It's a very, I think 10 to 12 minute ride, and then you're right there at Terminal 1 or 2. So, I mean, shout out to the Mall of America. I bet they're going to take some money out of MSP's pocket with that one.
For sure.
Especially for weekend flights and stuff like that. Maybe not the long-term deals, but if you're just going to fly somewhere for a weekend, you like to do that sometimes.
I do.
Get out of town for the weekend. Mall of America might be a good option for you.
Absolutely. Shout out to them. The cheapest MSP parking option right now is about $30 a night, and that's the quick ride ramp shuttle. You still got to get on a shuttle with that. Right. So it's really no different than what they're offering right now at Mall of America. Let's talk some Timberwolves. They got back on track yesterday. They beat the Hawks 138 to 116. Good win for Minnesota. It was some bad feelings inside the locker room, and they were able to take it out on the Hawks last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Metaphorically and literally, because Naz Reid got into a little. It's billed as a fight for the headlines, but it was more of a kerfuffle. It was no hands were thrown, but a lot of intense grabbing. He ended up being ejected there. We like to, his nickname is 2 words because everybody likes to just say Naz Reid. His nickname is 2 words, but he was ready to throw 2 hands last night. He was ejected from the game, but luckily the Timberwolves. It was pretty much run away from the beginning. I mean, they won 138-116. Handled the Hawks handily, I should say. Nikhil Alexander-Walker made his return to the Target Center.
And they got a nice round of applause.
Yeah, absolutely. A fan favorite. As someone that, has worked in the media and has had a chance to interact with these players, a really thoughtful guy. I mean, when you ask him a question, he's going to give you a 3-4 minute answer because it's he's a guy that's coming off the bench. He wasn't part of the starting role, so it's the Anthony Edwards and those Rudy Gobert's, they're at the podium. So a guy like Nikhil, and it's easy when you're the bench guy to just be like, man, I'm I'm not, but he always gave really thoughtful answers. He was a really interesting dude, a foodie. A lot of people don't know he's a foodie. Now, some people, it's an overused word right now. People are like, I'm a foodie. When he said that, I kind of like in my head, I'm like, rolled my eyes and I'm like, okay. And then he named restaurants from all over the country and even Canada, because that's where he's from. Cousins with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
That's right.
They're up there in Canada, and he named restaurants all across the country. So the dude's a big foodie, just a really nice guy, and even more importantly, a really damn good player that's taken another leap for the Atlanta Hawks this year. Might be in the running for most improved player, but luckily he wasn't on fire last night. That was the Wolves. That was Ayo Dosunmu.
Yes, the
newest
guy.
Timberwolf.
Yeah.
It was his second game. First game was a little lackluster. Last night, let me see. What do you had here? 21 points, 9 of 13. The dude was going coast to coast like a Delta flight. He was out there doing everything. I mean, he was blocking shots. He had the smooth, buttery passes. He was attacking the rim like it stole something from his mama. I mean, it was an injection of life into this team that we've seen and complained at times this year has been listless. I mean, this guy came out there with just hustle. Damn near wanted to kiss him on the mouth after seeing all that hustle last night. So a brilliant game from Ayo, who's taken some of the load off of Naz Reid, because Naz Reid really has to bear the whole entire burden of the bench scoring, because the Wolves bench has not been very good this year. So Ayo was a shot in the arm for the Wolves, and they definitely needed that win. One more to go before the All-Star break, I believe.
Yeah, they're home tomorrow night against the Trailblazers. That's nice. 4 straight home games to kind of get into the
And
All-Star break.
I think they got some after the All-Star break as well.
Yeah.
I think it's their longest stretch of home games this season. A little bit over the halfway mark, because what are they at right now? About 55 games. So 82 games total. So we're real close to the end of the season here. So these wins count more than ever.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. What seed are they? Do you know what seed they're in
They're
right now?
the 6th seed.
They're in the
right
6th
now.
seed.
The
So they're
playoffs-
above the play-in.
Right out of the play-in. They're a game ahead of the Phoenix Suns right now. Half a game behind the Lakers and a game behind the Los Angeles Rockets, or the Houston Rockets, I should say. So they're right there. They could, and the Nuggets are only a game and a half above them. So the Spurs are a little bit out of reach. The Thunder seem like a little bit out of reach, but that 3rd seed is right there for the taking.
Yeah. It should be some exciting basketball here with the Timberwolves over the next several weeks. And the playoff push is kind of right around the corner. We talk about basketball season all season long. March is literally coming up. College hoops, they're about to get into it. And then the NBA playoffs are not really far behind that either. So
right after that. I mean, they only got, let me do some quick math, like 27 games left or something like that. If they're at 55?
Yes.
Yeah, something like 27 games
yes.
left. So we're right there. And you know how fast these games go, man. I mean, the last game of the regular season, April 12th. 2 months away,
2 months.
Near from today.
30 days from today.
Yeah,
yes.
that is absolutely absurd. It's gonna be a lot of fun down the stretch, and we know how the Western Conference gets. It's a real tight knit race. It's gonna come down to that April 12th game against the Pelicans to decide what seed they're gonna be in, because that's just how the Western Conference works, man.
Yeah, 2 months. That's incredible for the rest of the season. So, all right, we are gonna go to commercial, and when we come back, Representative Kelly Morrison. She was given access to the Whipple Building last Friday. She spoke to us. I got to tell you, I've been watching I can't see another interview that she's done with a local news. This is kind of an exclusive that we had here with Representative Morrison.
Yeah, and she's one of a handful of people really to have been able to get inside of the Whipple Building. A lot of people have been having a lot of problems trying to get inside the Whipple Building, and she recounts what she saw, and it's pretty horrifying.
More from Kelly Morrison coming up after this. Welcome back. Last Friday, Minnesota U.S. Representatives Kelly Morrison, Betty McCollum, Angie Craig all tried to get access to the Whipple Building. Only Kelly Morrison was allowed inside, and pardon me, and she spoke to us. She spoke to us earlier today.
Yeah, let's hear directly from her. Here's our conversation with Representative Kelly Morrison from earlier today.
Representative Morrison, thanks so much for joining us here on the afternoon shift. There's so much mystery behind what's inside the Whipple Building. I know you had the chance to visit and tour it on Friday. Can you just tell us what did you see inside there?
Yeah, well, and thanks for having me and highlighting this just incredibly important issue in Minnesota, certainly, but across the country. So I've been to Whipple 4 times now. The first time I went, I was denied entry. The second time I gave 7 days notice. I actually gave 8 days notice and was granted admission after waiting for an hour. Um, and then I went and I joined the lawsuit. I joined 12 of my colleagues in a lawsuit challenging that 7 day waiting period, making the case that members of Congress need to be able to perform unannounced visits so that we can perform oversight of taxpayer funded detention facilities. And so a temporary restraining order was granted. So the 13 of us now are able to make unannounced visits. So last Thursday night, as soon as I got back from DC, I went to Whipple again, tried to deny my entry at the gate, sat there for, I think it was almost half an hour with a very argumentative guard, and ultimately 6 ICE or DHS police officers showed up. I had the copy of the temporary restraining order. They took pictures of it, sent it to someone else who they didn't tell me about, eventually was granted entry. And then I went back the following day with my colleagues, Representatives Craig and McCollum. They were denied entry because they're not on the lawsuit. That was the rationale, and went in again. So my overwhelming reaction to being inside of Whipple is that these are unacceptable conditions for a lot of reasons. First of all, everyone is in leg shackles. It's very dehumanizing. It is cold. It is there's concrete floors. There are minimal access to food. They kind of have snacks that are offered if people ask for it. They have these sort of fake blankets, those sort of tinfoil blankets, and people sleep on the floor. They rationalize all of this as because Whipple is not intended to be a detention facility. It is not a detention facility. So they say that they are not, they don't have to follow the rules of detention facilities. So they send people out on an average, it sounds like, they get a little vague, but it sounds like 2 times a day to Texas, in some cases to Louisiana, and then I learned also still in some cases to third countries. Some people are deported directly from Whipple. As a physician myself, I have deep concerns about the humanitarian treatment of human beings. And I will say too, we now know there's a measles outbreak in Texas. Recently, I believe yesterday, there's now a tuberculosis outbreak being reported. There are no protocols for preventing spread of those very infectious diseases. There aren't basic medical protocols at Whipple. There was a nurse there when I was there. There is not a medical professional there 24/7. At one of my visits, a nurse was there, and I asked what the screening process was for putting people on a plane to send them to a detention facility far away. And he said they ask if they have a cough. And that was the extent of it. So that just gives you sort of a little bird's eye view of the horrific and unacceptable conditions, in my view, in the United States of America. It needs to end right now. Operation Metro Surge needs to end, and ICE needs to get out of Minnesota. And, I want to add, Susan Collins, apparently, senator from Maine, was able to prevent ICE from doing a significant exercise or operation in Maine. Good for her. I want ICE and CBP out of Minnesota, but I don't want them to go to another state and inflict the harm that they're doing on our communities somewhere else in our country. So this whole operation needs to end right now before more damage is done to more human beings.
That's just absolutely sickening. I literally have a gut reaction to that, Representative. Thank you for sharing that, because that's important information to know, but just absolutely chilling, and it's just abysmal that people are going through that. I read an interview that you did after you had visited the facility, and you were able to speak with a couple of people in the facility. Just what did you hear from them, and what have you heard from other people that have been detained in the Whipple Building?
Yeah, this whole thing is gutting. There's no doubt about it. So in my first visit that I was granted entry, I was allowed to speak to two of the detainees. The first one was a woman who had just been returned from Texas, incidentally. And the minute that we were allowed to speak, she said, "They are being cruel. They are not treating us like human beings here." She said, "We slept on the concrete floor last night with no blanket. We were freezing. We were begging for a blanket, anything to keep us warm, and they declined." The other woman that I was able to speak to, I asked to speak to because she was alone in a cell, legs shackled. She looked distraught. She was crying. So I went in and we spoke Spanish, actually. She didn't speak English. It was not clear to me that the guards spoke Spanish or were able to communicate with her. And she told me that she and her husband had been taken that morning. They were with their 7-year-old daughter. The daughter was left behind with a friend. And she was, of course, distraught because she had been unable to speak with her daughter to make sure that she knew she was okay and taken care of and that she understood where her parents were. She asked me to ask the guards if she was being taken to Texas that morning or what was going to happen to her. They either wouldn't or couldn't respond. It was horrifying and these are the only two that I've been able to speak to, and both of them described just unacceptable conditions. The next two times where I made unannounced visits, I was prevented from speaking with any of the detainees, which I think is noteworthy given my experience of speaking to just two.
Yeah. Representative Morrison, what's next in this case? I know this partial government shutdown, the funding for DHS expires on Friday. What are you hearing inside Congress from your colleagues over there? And what is next? You say you want ICE out of Minnesota. When do you think is a tangible date where that actually may happen?
There are negotiations going on right now, and I was heartened to see that Democratic leadership in both the House and the Senate have issued a series of 10 demands that they say need to be met before any Democrats, or at least the majority of Democrats, will be able to support a bill. I'm glad to see those. I would take it further because of my experience of being inside of Whipple now several times and of being a Minnesotan and seeing and hearing about and experiencing what is happening in the streets of the metro area and across our state, frankly. I would like to see absolutely specific conditions for what detention conditions should look like. We need to have basic humanitarian care, medical care. We need to be meeting just the most basic standards for detention of human beings. We need to make sure that due process is being followed according to our Constitution. So there are some just really basic requirements for me, in addition to ending Operation Metro Surge. And I just want to remind people that the Republicans control the majorities in the House and the Senate, and they control the White House. They have made these decisions, they have made these policy decisions, and they can reverse them. So it's going to be incumbent upon certainly my colleagues in Minnesota. We have 4 members of Congress who represent Minnesota from the Republican Party. And I would call on them, and I have been calling on them, to start to speak up and protect our state from the humanitarian damage that's being done and also the economic damage that's being done. The small businesses community is being decimated. Our schools, our children are being harmed. I met with my superintendents in my district just about a week and a half ago, and the stories that they described were horrifying, of children being tackled in school parking lots, ICE agents accosting 13-year-old children, asking where their parents were born, demanding to see papers. This is a dystopian nightmare in our state right now, and it's got to end.
Representative Morrison, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Thanks. All right.
Visit, to say the least, and shout out to Representative Morrison to shining some light on this topic that literally a lot is being kept in the dark because she's pretty much one of the only people
That's right.
in the country outside of federal agents that's been able to see the insides of the Whipple Building, which has been ICE's headquarters here in Minneapolis, and she's calling for it to be shut down.
That's right. That's right. We're going to stick with the congressional theme here and send you back inside the Capitol building to the Senate floor to that meeting that they were having earlier today where Senator Amy Klobuchar was speaking. Let's take a look into what's going on there.
Never seem to focus on innocent victims who are shot and killed by illegal aliens that their policies have led into this country. They never seem to say names like Jocelyn Nungary in my hometown of Houston, who was raped and murdered, a young girl, by 2 Venezuelan gang members that Joe Biden had in custody and released, and they came to Houston and raped and murdered that beautiful little girl. They never seem to mention someone like Laken Riley, a nursing student, beautiful young woman, murdered by an illegal alien the Democrats have released. They never seem to mention anyone like Kate Steinle, a beautiful young woman, 28 years old, in California, shot on a pier by an illegal alien who had been released over and over and over again. We have had Kate Steinle's father testify before this committee. He held her head in his hands as she died, and her last words were, "Help me, Daddy." And yet, for my Democrat colleagues, it seems there's no limit to how many Americans can be murdered by illegal aliens, and yet they simply don't care. They still support open borders and releasing murderers and releasing violent criminals. We're here today because of the Democrats' open border policies and the damage it's done to this country, but we're also here today because Minnesota's welfare system has been treated like an open ATM, and the taxpayers are the ones getting robbed. Ms. Gambler, GAO has reported that the federal government loses hundreds of billions of dollars each year to fraud and improper payments, much of it in public benefit programs. Is that correct?
Yes, GAO has reported both on estimates of federal government losses due to fraud, as well as estimates of improper payments government-wide.
You may recall the infamous Leering Center, whose blacked-out windows and childless facilities have become emblematic of the public programs fraud currently plaguing Minnesota. Mr. O'Brien, when investigators encounter fraud this obvious, does it usually represent just a single isolated bad actor or the visible tip of a much larger scheme?
No, it's usually the visible tip of a much, much larger scheme. Fraud has a tendency not to occur in a vacuum.
In that instance, the fraud was so blatant that the owners of the business couldn't be bothered to spell the organization's name correctly on the public signage. Mr. O'Brien, does fraud of that magnitude typically persist because it's difficult to detect or because oversight and enforcement break down?
It tends to persist because oversight and enforcement break down, and it tends to spread geometrically.
The Somali fraud problem in Minnesota is not confined to child care centers. Federal prosecutors in Minnesota expect that half of the more than $18 billion spent since 2018 on 14 different Minnesota welfare programs may prove to be fraudulent. To put that figure into perspective, the amount of fraud, if confirmed, may approach the entire GDP of the nation of Somalia. Mr. Hankinson, once funds are laundered and sent overseas to fragile or corrupt jurisdictions, is there any realistic prospect of recovering them?
Only if they come back and spend them.
In many respects, Minneapolis has become the Mogadishu of the Midwest. As the chairman of the Subcommittee on Federal Courts Oversight, Agency Action and Federal Rights, I'm proud to have held a hearing last week on the issue of fraud within the Minnesota Somali community and beyond. But the problem of fraud doesn't stop there, and neither does our inquiry. Our shared civic culture rests on something uniquely American, a respect for the public commons. It is clear, though, that though Minnesota opens its doors in the early 1990s to a massive number of Somali immigrants, that kindness was not reciprocated. Instead, it was exploited again and again and again, and that's simply unacceptable. Mr. Beer, can any welfare system long survive if large-scale fraud is excused and explained away rather than confronted?
No.
It would be entirely naive to assume that fraud of this magnitude simply stopped at public program frauds. I encourage you to examine the graph behind me. What do you notice about the usage of public programs among Minnesota's Somali immigrant population? 81% of Somali households in Minnesota receive some form of welfare, compared to 21% of non-Somali households. 54% of Somali households receive food stamps, compared to 7% of non-Somali households. 73% are enrolled in Medicaid, compared to 18% of non-Somali households. And 27% receive cash assistance, compared to 6% of non-Somali households. My question to the panel, and this is my final question, is importing vast numbers of people from an impoverished nation, putting the majority of them on public welfare for years and decades at a time, and then turning a blind eye while they steal billions of dollars from the taxpayers. Is that helping America or hurting America? Each of you has a chance to answer that. Ms. Gambler.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I would just say that your question really speaks to the work that GAO has done as it relates to leading practices for managing fraud risk. We've put out a framework for agencies that can help them better put in place processes and controls up front to prevent fraud risks, and then also have policies and practices in place to really tailor their anti-fraud activities and anti-fraud approaches.
I believe in the melting pot. I'm an immigrant, but to melt, you need heat. You've got to put heat on people to make sure they obey laws and learn how we do business in the United States.
Is that helping or hurting America? It's a simple question.
I think if we ignore fraud, we're hurting America, of course.
Okay. Mr. Linderman?
That's not in the U.S. national interest, Senator, and we know that Somalia is a high fraud country. To bring people from that country who cannot integrate into our systems is not in the U.S. national interest.
Mr. O'Brien?
I believe it was Milton Friedman who said you can have a welfare state or you can have open borders, but you can't have both.
Mr. Beer?
We can build a wall around the welfare state, and that would be a lot better for taxpayers than building a wall and keeping out all these legal immigrants who can come and
Is this
contribute.
helping or hurting America?
Certainly, the welfare state is a problem, but we
Mr. Schwartz?
reform it.
It is not unusual for immigrant populations to have a high degree of assistance early in after their arrival, but we are already seeing statistics that the net benefit economically of Somali presence in the United States far outweids the cost.
So your
And
testimony
that
is this massive welfare usage is helping America, and the fraud is helping America?
Not the fraud. We need to go after the fraud, which makes all inexplicable the Trump administration's decision to take actions that has decimated the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota. I can't understand it. Can you understand it?
So simple question. Is this helping America or hurting America?
The Somali presence in the United States is helping America. That graph
for the Minnesota taxpayers who had $9 billion stolen from them, sir, the Minnesota taxpayers who had $9 billion stolen from them, it has not helped them, and the American taxpayers who are supporting a dependent population who are here for one reason, and that is to vote Democrat and give money to elect Democrats. And if it robs the American taxpayers and endangers our security, for our Democrat colleagues, that is a perfectly acceptable trade-off.
Speaking loudly does not make it true.
Your time has expired.
It just doesn't.
Your time has expired, Mr. Schwartz.
Mr. Linderman and Mr. Hankinson, I want you to respond to Mr. Beer's criticism of slowing the flow of adjudications because of the lack of vetting of migrants during the Biden administration. Do you think additional vetting is appropriate in slowing the adjudications by USCIS is a good idea or a bad idea in order to determine what the background is of these individuals?
Mr. Chairman, it's a good idea to slow any visa process and to be sure when we are issuing a document, refugee, whatever the status that admits a foreign national into our country, the obligation of the State Department or DHS has to be clear that that person is someone we know who he is or she is before we admit them into the country. Otherwise, why are we there?
Mr. Hankinson?
I do think everybody deserves a decision in their case in the end, even if the answer is no. But having let in an untold number of many millions of people under parole, released at the border, and having so many pending asylum cases, I think it is a good idea to pause and figure out exactly where we are and maybe revise our systems to make sure that so many people don't slip through.
Mr. O'Brien, my final questions are for you. So one of the things that makes me a little bit crazy is when I see in the media people talk about the migrants that are here in the country and said, well, they haven't committed any crimes, but you made clear that you can't be here in the United States illegally without committing crimes, whether it's identity theft or failure to have insurance and driving a car, you name it. But of course, when you enter the country without authorization, that is a crime, is it not?
It is. 8 U.S.C. 1325 makes improper entry by an alien a misdemeanor crime on the first offense and a felony on any subsequent offenses.
And you've made the point, correct in my view, that after they get here, you cannot claim to be a perfectly law-abiding individual if you enter the country illegally, because you simply can't get access to public benefits, you can't drive a vehicle, you can't, and the like. Thank you for responding to that. So earlier I made part of the record a document we got here from the Department of Justice that said last year alone, 485,000 final orders of removal. So it's really interesting because our Democratic colleagues have demanded, in order to reopen the appropriations process for the Department of Homeland Security, that ICE agents be required to get court orders in order to detain these individuals. But the fact of it is, at least last year, 485,000 of them have already received all the process they are due under the law. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Those individuals have received a final order of removal from an immigration judge, and that whole argument about the warrants is a red herring because federal district court judges do not have the authority to issue a civil warrant for the arrest of a person who has undergone the removal process.
Well, and that's an important point. This is a civil process, not a criminal process, correct?
That is correct.
And so the idea of having to go back to court and get another order on top of the order of removal that's been defied by the immigrant makes no sense.
Well, it makes no sense whatsoever. And if you stop and think about it, we spend an inordinate amount of money on the immigration court, and then to claim that an immigration judge has the authority to remove somebody from the United States, but on the strength of that order, ICE can't remove them from their apartment is just absolutely absurd.
And finally, Senator Britt touched on this with you. In Texas, we don't have the problems they're having in Minnesota. Getting local law enforcement to cooperate with ICE. ICE issues a detainer when somebody's in a county jail and then is turned over to federal authorities without ICE having to go and execute their administrative warrant in the streets and be subject to harassment and interference by some of the individuals who unfortunately including those who suffered their loss of life for interfering with the federal law enforcement activity. So if we didn't have sanctuary jurisdictions like Minneapolis and Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, would that help?
Yeah, it would help massively. I mean, the fact is that a large number of people who are engaged in criminal activity who are here unlawfully are going to encounter state or local police first. And if the state and local police make the presence of those individuals known to ICE, then that means ICE has to expend a significantly smaller amount of effort in order to take that person into federal custody and subject them to the removal process, or if they already have an order of removal, to then physically remove them from the country.
Thank you. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we're at the hour, but a few more questions. I'll try to be brief before we close. First, Mr. Beer, I saw your head nodding during the discussion of warrants. My understanding is the issue of warrants is specifically to federal agents going into homes without a warrant, including homes of United States citizens. The practice of racial profiling, which has been sanctioned by the Supreme Court. Do you want to briefly add anything to that?
Well, absolutely. What we're talking about is going to a judge to actually enter a home. I mean, that is, how do we know it's the immigrant's home? We don't know that unless you actually present probable cause to a judge and determine that. You don't just rely on some individual ICE agent or some federal agent's gut. We saw what happened in Minnesota when they went with their gut. They dragged a U.S. citizen out of his home in front of his grandkids in his underwear in the middle of winter. That's unbelievable what's happening.
And it wasn't who they thought it was. Mr. Linderman, quick follow-up question. I heard you say just a few minutes ago in response to Senator Cornyn's question that
that was a Senate Judiciary Committee meeting on fraud in Minnesota that we just saw live.
Yeah, right from one representative to right to Congress.
That's right. The last person, the last person speaking there was Senator Alex Padilla of California, born in Los Angeles, but the son of illegal immigrants. So it's just an issue that is entrenched with all of us and kind of has been with us for a very long time now. So
yeah, it's been the focal point of the whole United States for the last month and change. So
absolutely. Governor Tim Walz spoke earlier today at the market at Malcolm Yards about ICE's economic impact in Minnesota, and our very own friend and Fox 9 anchor Tim Blotz watched that in totality and is going to join us next to talk about it.
No better person to talk to.
That's right. Tim Blotz on Tim Walz coming up next. Big speeches and different events that happened today. Maybe none bigger locally here than Tim Walz speaking.
Yeah, and there's some hope to be, no pun, because that's his daughter.
That's
Hope
right.
Walz, but there's some hope to be drawn from Tim Walz's speech.
That's right. That was the headline of it. And Tim Blotz is here to tell us more about Tim Walz's speech. What's going on, Tim?
Yeah, this was pretty big this morning and somewhat unexpected. I mean, we knew the governor was going to be meeting with small businesses this morning, and he toured some businesses in southeast Minneapolis, at Malcolm Yards, which is, for those who don't know, that's really close to Surly Brewing and O'Shaughnessy Brewing. There's a lot of great little entrepreneurial businesses and restaurants in that area. It's a real happening part of town. But the whole crux of it is that the governor wanted to talk to these small restaurant and business owners about how the enforcement surge, the ICE operation, has been affecting their businesses. And what he heard today is that it's having a huge impact. And after he toured, the governor always comes up to the microphone, right, and has a couple of thoughts, and he had the business owners there with him. And the first thing he said is, I've been meeting regularly with Tom Homan. I talked to him yesterday, and I called the White House this morning and talked to White House Chief of Staff, Susie Mills, and I think we're going to expect a big announcement by the end of the week that we're going to draw down the number of agents. In fact, let me read you the exact quote here. I spoke with Tom Homan and yesterday, and I spoke with Susie Willis, the president's chief of staff, this morning, and we're all very much in a trust and verify mode. But it's my expectation that we will hear more from them. And I think in the next day or so that we'll be talking days, not weeks and months of this occupation. So he's expecting it clearly to draw down. He's expecting and hoping that Tom Homan will make the announcement by the end of the week. And there's some background to this too. And the governor speculating here, and he often talks about not wanting to get ahead of his skis. And I think even he hopes he's not getting ahead of his skis here. But he said that typically these agents are here on 30-day rotations, and they're coming up on the end of a 30-day rotation. And it's his speculation that the governors, that instead of extending a 30-day rotation or bringing in more agents for another 30 days, that the ones here that are about to wrap up will just simply leave. And of course, we're waiting for some kind of announcement from the White House and especially Mr. Homan, perhaps to come down here in a couple of days.
Yeah. No, not like you said, the kind of the reason for this press conference was the economic impact on small businesses
Absolutely.
in Minnesota. What did Governor Walz have to say about that? Did he give like specific statistics? 'Cause I know we're kind of all hearing different like ballpark numbers about what's going on, but did he cite some specific?
Well, Patty Walz from Malcolm Yard, she's the owner there, and she warned that restaurants are about to close. And she said that most restaurants she's talked with, they've been losing income of 50 to 80%, right? And some of them are already closed, and she's worried that if this continues, more will permanently close. And there was also Saeed Wadi. He's the owner of the World Kitchen. And he pleaded with Governor Walz to say, look, we're in need of cash. We are running out of cash. And the moment we run out of cash is when we have to close. If you're a small business operator, and especially if you're paying your taxes quarterly, I used to do this when I had my own self-proprietorship in New Mexico before I moved here, and I paid quarterly. So you got to pay all these taxes that are coming up. Well, one of the big ones that's coming up in Minnesota is the state sales tax. And he was asking the governor, in fact, he turned around to the governor and he said, Governor, the one thing you can really help us with right now is if you could postpone our state sales tax payment. Just temporarily postpone it so that we can pay our rent, so we can pay our utilities, so that we can pay our employees. And the governor acknowledged, and he said, you know what, we're going to listen to all ideas and we're going to take them very seriously. You know, the governor didn't make any promises here, but it was one solution that this small business owner, Saeed Wadi, was saying, please, could you at least help us with this? Give us a little bit of an extension time to pay off our state sales taxes.
Yeah. I know the big headline from this was that quote that you said, days, not weeks and months of ICE's presence. They're waiting for this big announcement to come at the end of the week. Do you think when that big announcement comes, it's going to be ICE is leaving, and that means every agent is out? Or do you think it's just going to be another, because last week we heard 700 fewer. Do you think it'll be another drastic reduction?
Who knows? Yeah. We don't know what the White House is going to do. We don't know what Border Czar Tom Homan is going to propose doing. But I think once there is an announcement of a major drawdown. Look, there's always going to be some ICE agents in Border Patrol here, right? We've been hearing that the regular staffing levels is around 170, 150, 170 in that ballpark range. So you've always got a permanent presence here in the cities. But this will be a significant drawdown if they can get rid of all of the extras that have been brought in. And I think that will be a signal, rather, a symbolic gesture that maybe people can feel free to go out again. Maybe workers can feel free to go back to work. Maybe contractors can feel that their vendors can come back in town. One of the things we were hearing from the deed commissioner today is that they've been hearing even supply chain issues, that truckers were afraid to come into Minnesota, not necessarily that they have immigration issues, but because the color of their skin looked more like you, Max, and not so much like me. Yeah. And so they're worried about being racially profiled if they come into this state. So that's a big issue. Yeah. At least it has been. So those are some of the issues that the governor was talking about today. And he said, once this surge is over, we can pivot into recovery mode. And that was his words, pivot into recovery mode to help the businesses recover, to get the Twin Cities and the surrounding areas back into some stable footing again. Yeah.
Did Governor Walz, I know you said in response to the owner of the World Street Kitchen's plea, kind of just said, well, we'll listen to all solutions, but did he offer any up throughout his speech? Did he offer any specifics?
Yeah, he didn't, but he did make a point of saying, Max, that we're open to all ideas. Please, tell us what you need. And I have to believe that, the sincerity of Saeed Wadi's plea here today about the sales tax extension for a short time. I have to believe that fell on very open ears, and that they're willing to listen. And at least we hope. We none of us want to see our favorite establishments struggle at this time, and so they're encouraging people. If go support your neighborhood businesses, go support your neighborhood restaurants right now, because they need you more than ever. In fact, a lot of them were talking about, this is very reminiscent of what happened during the shutdown, when everyone had to close and no one was coming back to work, and a lot of businesses were struggling and in danger of closing at that time. I mean, we all remember that. That was, even though it was 5 years ago, it's still, I think, very fresh in our minds. So,
I was going to ask, and maybe that kind of answered it there. What are some ways that we could go out and support these businesses outside of just is like buying gift cards, so you're kind of like buying ahead and
that's one of the things they talked about today is buying those gift cards, because that gives those businesses the cash, right? It's almost as if you're giving them a cash loan if you're buying gift cards. Right, because let's face it, how many gift cards do you have at home that you've never used?
That's a number I have.
Yep, I do.
I got 0. 0. I'm using.
Used?
Or? 0 gift cards. I'm
using sitting on your counter?
No, I use them right away. See? Right away. I won a gift card at the iHeart holiday party last Thursday. I called and activated that SOB on Saturday. And I was like, I'm ready to support my local businesses. It was one of those Visa gift cards. Those are the best ones.
Yeah.
Actually, had $0 on it. I got to work that out. They gave me a bunk gift card. But I don't got none. But I get your point, Tim. I get your point.
Yeah. And but that's one way they talked about here today that you could actually help. Go buy a gift card from your local restaurant, because that gives them some cash, whether it's $50, $100, and that helps them pay some bills during this time. So
I'm assuming we don't know. We don't have any news on when exactly Tom Holman's
No,
gonna speak,
we don't. And the ball's kind of in his court right now. And, again, I often talk about the governor often says, he uses this phrase a lot. Well, I hope I'm not getting ahead of my skis here. He uses that a lot. And there's a portion of me that deep down inside worries that did he get ahead of his skis here before the White House was prepared to make an announcement now as punishment to the governor and the state? They hold off another week or two to make this announcement.
Just asking a question because I've never skied before. What happens when you do get ahead of your skis? When
you
you're
fall.
You fall. That's what
you
happens?
fall.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
So unlike some of these Olympians that are out there
but
going uphill.
Or some of them. There was a guy that he basically had already won. I saw this morning he had already won. He tried to just lackadaisically kind of go down and just try to be chill about it.
Yeah.
Woo! Like full-on face plant. Did the splits like Looney Tunes style. So it happens to the best of us.
But you know what? But if that was me, you'd be finding pieces of Timothy all up and down that slope.
For sure. I
Right?
never would have recovered. I just turned into the abominable froman because I just live up there. I just live up in the Alps, in the Italian Alps forever.
That's why we love you, Max. And can I say something here? I love the Barbie shirt.
Thank you.
That is so awesome.
I got it to originally to make my kiddo laugh. I would hammer a plank to my head if it made her laugh. I would do anything to make that little girl smile.
Well, you made me laugh. I love that because it's so you. It's so you.
It's the vibe.
Is there something on the bat, or is it just Barbie?
It's just Barbie. Just Barbie.
Okay,
Very simple. Very straightforward.
And the fact that you're here in a T-shirt.
Yeah.
You must have some internal fire. The fro. That's it. I mean, seriously, I've got a jacket on. I've got insulated on because it's so dang cold in our studios.
Outfits. You can see it if you zoom in. I got the pit stains right here, so I'm hot. I need less clothing on.
Minnesotans, they think this is warm. Well, it's still 40 degrees. It's still cold outside. It's not warm outside.
It's warmer.
It's warm. It's a lot warmer.
It feels great.
It feels like a day at the beach out there. And while you guys have been in here, the sun is finally starting to come out a little bit. So life is, our world is getting back on its axis here a little bit.
Hopefully, literally the sun is coming out right now. Hopefully, metaphorically, the sun can come out for all of Minnesota.
I know.
You always bring the sunshine when you come in the studio now.
No, well, invite me back. I'd love to come back.
Open invitation.
Yeah. No, this is always fun to be here with you guys. But again, I can't underscore the importance of the governor's announcement here today. It was kind of like the headline that everyone's been holding on for. And you just know that he's been waiting to make this himself. And now we just have to wait to see if the White House is going to follow through with this announcement.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, should be a big announcement later this week. We appreciate it.
We hope.
We hope. Speaking of skiing, we're talking about Olympic roundup coming up next.
Yeah, some Minnesotans took home some medals today. We'll give you all the latest as we can, because some activities are going on right now as we speak. We'll give you all the latest right after this commercial break.
Buongiorno. We're taking you to Italy for the Olympics.
We are indeed. Some Minnesotans took home some medals today, so we got to celebrate that. And the latest, before we get to the Minnesotans winning medals, we got some Minnesotans on the women's hockey team that might be in line to win some medals. They just smoked their biggest rival, Team Canada 5. Rip in the last preliminary game. They'll play in the quarterfinal on Friday. TBD who they'll be playing. But again, I mean, I'm not even joking or engaging in hyperbole when I say this. I mean, this is a Lakers Celtics, Ali Frazier-esque rivalry. Check this out. Prior to today, adding today now. USA and Canada all time 25-24. Canada has the lead by 1 now, just after today.
Right.
Entering today, it was the goals scored 135-133 in Canada's favor.
Razor tight.
Now the USA's got a little bit of an advantage on that, but still razor tight. And like I said a little bit earlier in the show, no other country has won Olympic or World Championship gold in women's hockey apart from these two teams. And then the United States blew them out of the water 5-0. That's got to feel dang good. And I'm assuming those two teams will face off again in the gold medal game. And those ladies are going to be skating in with nothing but confidence if they see the Canadians on the other side.
That's right. I think the men open up Thursday, against Latvia maybe on Thursday.
I think something like that. Yeah.
They're coming. The men are coming.
The men are right around the corner as well. A little bit more parity, I feel like, in the men's field. But when it comes to the women, it's all USA and it's all Canada.
Yes. So the USA women taking care of business. We talked to Team Corey and Corey from Duluth, the curlers.
We did.
They just fell just short. Just short.
Oh my gosh, it was a heartbreaker. Grace, are you still there? Are you there on the ones and twos? We were watching. I was looking over your shoulder creepily trying to watch it because you got Peacock and I don't. So but like it came down to the, I don't know what they're called, not rounds, but
eighth end. I think
ends. It came down to the very last play on the 8th end, which is the last round. Basically a 9th inning with 2 outs, right?
Yeah, practically. And I mean, the 6th or 7th end, the U.S. came back strong, and it was very much like exciting. I was like, you were sitting there, Max, and I was like, something good just happened. I'm not exactly sure what, but then we ended up getting 2 points, and we were ahead of Sweden, but then they ended up coming back at the last minute and beating us. But, it's still great. I mean, Corey and Corey were the first team to, let alone make it, like, this far, but then to get the silver medal, they're the first mixed doubles curling team. So, it's still exciting. Maybe next year they'll be able to, or not next year, next Winter Olympics, they'll be able to pull ahead of Sweden. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot about curling over the last 2 days, but yeah.
Absolutely. We were talking about it. After yesterday's interview, it was like watching a completely different game today. I actually finally understood what was going on. I tried to understand some of the strategies that were going on. It's actually a really fascinating game to watch. Me and Grace were talking. We're thinking about taking it up.
Yeah.
Both of us. So we're going to become curlers.
We'll be the 2030.
Watch out. Watch out, that mixed doubles gold. Me and Grace, we're coming for it. We're coming for it. But yeah, Paula Molzon.
Yes.
She was able to earn a bronze medal in the team skiing, which it works a little bit differently. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but it's teams of 2, but each country isn't limited to one team. Because I believe like Italy too took some, or Switzerland too took the gold medal. And they actually beat out the more notable names, Breezy Johnson, the big time U.S. Skiing names. They got 4th. They missed the podium. But our girl, Paula Malzahn, she was a local Minnesotan gal.
Prior Lake.
Yeah, Prior Lake, stand up. She was awesome. And she took home a bronze medal in the team skiing earlier this morning.
So that's 3 medals for Minnesotans from the United States. We have a graphic of the medal count here.
Yeah.
That's nearly half of the medals that the USA has received. So Minnesota claims 3 of those 7, nearly 50%. That's incredible.
That is pretty dang incredible. Like we talked about, Minnesota's very well represented on Team USA. Man, we gotta bump that medal count a little bit up. Norway's just running away with it right now. They got 6 gold medals, double the amount of second place in Germany and Sweden and Switzerland. I mean, who would have? I mean, obviously that's the field you expect in the Winter Olympics to be leading, though. But the United States, we gotta bump that up a little bit. But we still got, I believe we still got individual curlings, men's and women's. We still got, there's still luge to be done. Ski mountaineering with the newest sport that we were just watching just a second ago. I mean, it's literally
impossible.
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's skiing, but going
uphill.
Up a hill.
It's incredible.
It's absurd.
They're going sub 6-minute miles, and they're going uphill on skis, not running.
Skis, yes. It's absurd. It's a lot of fun to watch. There's still plenty of Olympics to be had. I think it goes to the 22nd or something like that. So we still got like 2 weeks of this stuff. So we got a little bit of time to close that gap there, because USA not doing so hot in the gold medal count right now.
Yeah, and it's really, I know there was all these events, and all these events are great. The men's hockey is really, that's the bread and butter, I think, for Olympics, for us and everybody. And so I'm excited for the men's hockey tournament to begin, because I don't know when the last time USA won the gold. It's probably been a while since they have won the gold.
I think it's been a real long time. So it'd be nice to see if the men could bring home the gold, because look at the ladies are doing their part.
They're definitely doing their part.
They're doing their part. They're almost dang near guaranteed to be in the gold medal game. We expect the same from the men.
Absolutely. We're going to continue having a full Olympics coverage, especially as it pertains to Minnesotans. I'm not sure who might be in action tomorrow, but whoever is from Minnesota will be on it.
We absolutely will be on it. And again, there's so much more. If you got a chance, even just 10 minutes out of your day, man, these are some of the best athletes. These are the best athletes in the world in their designated fields, and it's so much fun to watch. Again, even if you don't know anything about it, I'm not going to watch luge in March 10th.
That's right.
But I'm absolutely locked in on the luge today. It's been so much fun, and just like honestly, I truly think the Olympics is one of the coolest concepts that humanity's ever come up with. Like pretty much the whole world comes together to play these games. Have a friendly competition of skill, and it's just really cool and inspiring, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something that I saw today. I don't know if you guys are following this, but he's not a Minnesotan, but he's from Connecticut. Maxim Nomov, the figure skater.
Okay.
Both of his parents passed in that plane crash that happened about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. And he ended up qualifying for the Olympics, and he had a really amazing performance. He didn't win a medal, but he had his best season score so far. I just wanted to shout him out. His performance was amazing. He held up a picture of him and his parents on the ice. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you go and you watch it. It's just a very heartfelt story. And everyone was rooting for him, regardless of what country you're in. And along the lines of what you guys were saying, it's cool seeing people supporting each other. I mean, I think that's what the Olympics is. I mean, yes, it's about the nation rivalry, but it's just, there's a lot of pride and a lot of just like things to celebrate during the Olympics.
For sure. And to that, and to that point, like when you see how much it means to these people, once all the races and the competitions are over, you don't really care. Like I was rooting for Team USA and the team alpine skiing this morning, but then when I saw how much it meant to the Italians that won, that's like, you get teary-eyed and emotional either way, So it's stories like that, or, people, you always get those stories where it's like, I just started doing this like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and all of a sudden you're at the top. You even get weird stuff. How about the guy that medaled, the biathlete that medaled today, and then randomly admitted to cheating on his girlfriend in a post-medal interview? A Norwegian athlete just randomly, out of nowhere, obviously wasn't asked about it, and just crying in tears brings that up post bronze medal.
Yeah.
The Olympics has it all. Even Jerry Springer, a soap operatic drama.
They say whatever happens in that Olympic Village stays in that Olympic Village. So
there's some crazy stories that come out of there.
Crazy stories that come out of there.
Yeah, look it up if you get a chance. It's a very odd interview.
Yeah. Well, good for him that he got the medal.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. And being honest, I suppose
Right,
there's
I
some
guess
token
so.
for honesty. So, yes. All right. We'll have more Olympics coverage all throughout the week. Coming up next, we're going to Grace, why don't you come into the conversation and yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, our next guest is running a little bit late.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think we're going to switch the two segments that we were planning
Sure.
on. So let's go ahead and do our Black History Month segment coming up.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
We'll throw to commercial, and when we come back, we'll have some Black history in the month of February for you. Welcome back. It's February 10th. It is Black History Month. Why does Black? It's got to be the shortest month of the year.
I
What's up
know,
with
that's
that?
what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I say we extend it at least till March 2nd, you know, just to make up for those 2 days that we don't get.
Right.
I'm not sure why they ended up picking February, though. Maybe that can be our Black History Month informational tomorrow.
I like that. Except in leap years, of course, because then you
Right.
only need to extend it one day.
There you
See?
go.
Yes,
There you
yeah. We're going to be profiling two different people that have made contributions to Black history here in the United States.
Something we're trying to do. We're going to do as much as possible throughout Black History Month. People, events,
Yes.
artists, whatever it may be. We're just trying to enlighten you because, like I talked about a little bit earlier, and I don't know what your public education experience was like, but mine, dude, Black History Month has so many gaps in it, man. It literally is just Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Obama, and everything is all good and sunshine and rainbows, and you miss out on so many charismatic and important and iconic figures throughout American history.
Yes.
Black history is American history.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to stay right here in Minnesota. I'm fascinated by the gubernatorial race that we got coming up here this fall. I want to speak about Lisa Damoth, the first Black Speaker of the House in Minnesota history.
Interesting.
She won the GOP caucus last week. So now look, if she wins the Republican nomination, Lisa Damoth will be the first Black candidate of either major party ticket in Minnesota history, Democratic and Republican. She would be the first Black candidate ever in Minnesota history. Now, there's also never been a woman governor either in Minnesota. And so if she takes the Republican nomination and Amy Klobuchar, who we heard from earlier today, who's running for governor, takes the Democratic nomination, we're guaranteed at minimum to have the first female governor of Minnesota, which I think is fantastic. Lisa Damoth, she would be just, forget about winning the governor race. She'd be the first Black nominee of either party, of either major party ticket in Minnesota history. And it got me thinking about how many Black governors has the United States ever had? You would think, we've had a Black president. There's been 6. Ever. Of all 50 states.
Wow.
And there's only one right now. One. There's one. Wes Moore in Maryland. He's the only one that's out there right now.
Wow.
Deval Patrick, you all might remember him. He left off Massachusetts. He left office last year. I thought this was fascinating. There were 2 Black governors in the 19th century, both Republicans, which, as we now know, the Republican Party of yesteryear now has more shift to Democratic values of this year. There were 2 Black Republican governors in the 19th century. But it wasn't until Douglas Wilder of Virginia in 1990 that we would have one in the 21st century. That's a 118-year hiatus between Black governors from the 18th century, or from the 19th century to the 21st, or to the 20th century.
Wow.
So incredible gap that we've had there. Yeah. And I would have lost the bet if you'd have asked me how many Black governors we've ever had in United States history. I would have taken the over on 5.5 or on 6.5. Yeah. It's the under. Only 6, and only one right now. That's 2% of the nation is or 2% of states are represented by a Black governor. Lisa, born in Painesville, Minnesota, largely white city, population 2388. She's biracial. Her father is black. Her mother is white. And she's talked about how she doesn't view herself as the first black Speaker of the House in Minnesota history. She views herself as just the first Speaker of the House because she just views herself as a Speaker of the House because she believes that she is qualified to hold that role, and being black is a big part of her identity. But she doesn't like to necessarily say that she's a trailblazer of sorts. And so I just think that Lisa Damuth, and this is not an endorsement, by the way, this is just these are just facts here. I just think it's a fascinating story, especially here in the state of Minnesota, where there hasn't been a whole lot of black political leaders from either party in general. And so I think her story is fascinating, and I think it would be fascinating if she wins the Republican nomination, and of course if Amy Klobuchar wins the Democratic nomination. We're going to have history either way this fall, but we will have history if she gets that Republican nomination. She'll be the first black candidate from either major party ticket for a governor's race in Minnesota history. If she wins the Republican endorsement in May, she will proceed, but she has already said if she doesn't win that endorsement, that her time running the race is done. But she did win the caucus straw poll last week, so things are looking good for her right now. We'll see. There's a lot, as people have said, there's a lot of time between now and the fall. So we'll see what changes there. But Lisa Damuth, certainly part of Minnesota's black history, and want to tip my hat to her and the progress that she's made and the barriers that she's broken down within our political system here in the state of Minnesota.
6 black governors.
That's it.
That is striking.
That's it.
Thank Reconstruction, the Klan, and Jim Crow for that huge gap. That you mentioned there. That is a
huge gap.
Striking.
Only 6.
Number. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and only one in office right now.
Yeah, that is just crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an incredible stat right there. That's something that's going to stick with me for the rest of the day, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I chose Fred Hampton. For my little, Black History Month spotlight. Fred Hampton, former deputy chairman of the Black Panther Party. His work did not stop there. He helped found the Rainbow Coalition, which was actually a multicultural political organization that included the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, which was a Puerto Rican political group, the Young Patriots, which is a white Southerners, group of white Southerners that was politically organized, which is kind of like, you think about that in today's time. Could you imagine, those kind of white Southerners joining up a coalition with the Black Panther Party? And then you think about back then, back in the 70s.
Yes.
That is just absolutely, I mean, it's mind-boggling, but that's who Fred Hampton was. He was a unifier through and through. Again, and part of this Rainbow Coalition, it even had an alliance amongst major Chicago street gangs. He was able to get rival street gangs to kind of get to a ceasefire point of view, join this multicultural alliance, because he's telling everybody, in the streets of Chicago, hey, we're way stronger together than we are divided in all these little different niche groups, so let's just all get together. He's born and raised in Chicago, anti-racist, anti-classist, literally dedicated his entire life to activism. I read that he had started organizing a free breakfast for kids in the neighborhood that needed it when he was about 8 years old. 8 years old, which, a lot of people, again, talking about kind of the gaps in the American education system. I know that, luckily I was able to, be a little bit autodidactic when I was young and be able to learn about the Black Panthers outside of the school curriculum. So I knew better. But when you learn about them through the school curriculum, they make them sound like really scary guys. They make up these militant guys that were carrying these guns. But that's not really who the Black Panthers were. And obviously that's an image of them that has been, repurposed all across decades. Gump. Yeah, exactly. Yes. But they, here are just a few things that the Black Panther Party is credited with popularizing. Free lunches in schools. They basically invented that. The Black Panther Party, if you got a free lunch in school, if you've ever had a free lunch in school, you can thank the Black Panther Party for that. Free health clinics in local black neighborhoods. Think something like, and I know this is like a loaded kind of organization, but think something like Planned Parenthood, but back in the day, where you could go there, not necessarily for the specifics that Planned Parenthood offers, but just for any type of medical care for a lot of people that didn't have access to that type of medical care. Free health clinics in their communities, community schools that focused on Black history and Black liberation. Those are just some of the things that the Black Black Panther Party helped champion, and he was their co-chairman, known for kind of his charisma and oratorical excellence, and like I said, dedicated his whole life to unifying people. Here's a quote from him. He says, "If you walk through life and don't help anybody, you haven't had much of a life." And he lived by that mantra, whether he was tackling, poverty, police brutality, fascism. He dedicated every neuron in his brilliant mind to help oppressed people in the United States, Black people, women, Asian people, brown people, just literally everyone, and not just in the United States, across all of the diaspora. He was very interested in stuff that was happening in Africa, in Europe, and South America. Unfortunately, he was taken from us at a very young age 21. He was able to make this much impact that decades later, people still remember him and talk about him and talk about the influence and impact and legacy that he had. He was 21 years old, so literally dedicated his entire life to fighting against oppression. Obviously, we know now because of the leaks of files and whatnot and the releasing of files, COINTELPRO, it was a huge counter movement kind of group that was organized by the FBI. The head of the FBI at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, they did everything from spying on authors to actors to activists. They didn't very much care for the Black Panther Party, to put it lightly. They didn't very much like Fred Hampton. He was deemed as someone that was like a high priority kind of target. They not only spied on him, but they placed moles in the Black Panther Party to sow seeds of dissension. And again, this is not me putting on a tinfoil hat. It wouldn't fit over my head anyways. This is documented factual stuff. He was killed in an FBI raid in 1969 at the age of 21. At the time, it was kind of like, I think they deemed it, it was just, there was nobody was at fault. But now, with the information that we know now, it's widely believed to be a deliberate assassination. He was drugged. He was asleep in his bed, shot dead. Agents sprayed over 100 bullets into his apartment, where his nearly 9-month pregnant fiance was also at the time. Awful lot of bullets for a guy that was asleep and was drugged. So he had a tremendous impact on the world, and then to close it out, to quote himself, Fred Hampton, "You can kill the revolutionary, but you can never kill the revolution." That is probably his most popular quote. And if you want to learn more about him, there's an excellent, I would imagine, slightly dramatized version of his life, the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. It's an excellent movie. It should have had a theatrical release. It was one of those movies that came out in that weird COVID period where it kind of just went straight to HBO Max. I know it got some award. I think Daniel Kaluuya won an Oscar for it. It stars Daniel Kaluuya. You probably know him from Get Out. He's the main character from Get Out. He's in Black Panther. And Lakeith Stanfield as well. It is literally, obviously, I feel closely to the subject matter, and I grew up, learning about Fred Hampton and whatnot. But it is literally one of the best films that I've ever seen in my entire life. I could not recommend it more. Judas and the Black Messiah, and that is Fred Hampton, a guy that you don't learn about in school a whole lot, but you should. Yeah, you said he was assassinated in 1969. That was a chaotic year in the United States with a lot of stuff going on, and this is certainly one of those things. And I read that the city of Chicago, and I don't know if it actually ended up passing or not, but recently they tried to create a Fred Hampton Day in the city of Chicago. Sure. So he's a huge figure in Chicago history and American history as well. Absolutely. I enjoyed doing this. We can continue it tomorrow and the rest of the month, and learn about different people. Like you said, you hear about Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and then it's kind of Barack Obama for children now, and then it's kind of like that's it. Jackie Robinson maybe is thrown in there, and some other people here and there. Thurgood Marshall, sure, but like you don't hear about a lot of the other people that don't quite make that cut. So for sure, and there's a lot. I mean, literally, again, just like Black people are integral and intricately woven into all American history. American history is Black history. Black history is American history. So it's important to learn about this stuff. And unfortunately, it feels like this stuff is kind of being devalued even more than it already kind of was when we were coming up. So it's important to relay these messages to people, and I appreciate the audience for sticking with us and letting us do this. Yeah, absolutely. We will have more to come from the afternoon shift after this. Grace, won't you jump in here? Our next guest, are they here?
She's not on the line quite yet, but she says she'll be on around like 4:30. So I think we'll end up getting to her on time. And yeah, she's gonna be talking about this organization that's helping Minnesota immigrants and refugees, many of which have been sent to Texas and are being released. So the International Institute of Minnesota, the executive director, she'll be joining us in just a couple minutes.
Great. Awesome. We're excited to talk to Jane Grotman all about detention centers and whatnot. That'll be coming up next.
Yeah, stick with us. More afternoon shift in just a sec.
Welcome back here to the afternoon shift. I think we hear about these ICE detention centers and whatnot, and we just think of them as just buildings. There's hundreds of people that are inside these buildings being transported from Whipple down to Texas and Louisiana and whatnot, and it got us asking the question, what happens to people when they get released? Where do they go?
Yeah, I feel like us as media people and as our reporters, our wealth of reporters here at Fox 9, we're only able to cover the story pretty much up until the person gets detained. Unless there's lawsuits and stuff like that. But it's like where does that person go? What is the process of getting them back to Minnesota? These are things that we all have questions about, but it doesn't tend to be necessarily covered. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. It seems like the national media has kind of moved on. There's other stories right now. Fortunately, nobody has gotten shot or anything like that over the last couple of weeks. So I feel like the national media is like, oh, okay, Minnesota's all good. We're just gonna move on. But this stuff is still happening. Clearly, it's still having a huge impact. And we want to know, where are these Minnesotans that have been detained and taken away? How do we get them back, and what kind of conditions are they living in right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And we heard the stories. I think we had the mayor of Hopkins and whatnot come on and say that when they arrive back in Minnesota, they just get dropped off in the middle of the winter, in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., no coat,
Whipple Building,
no phone,
for sure,
no direction, not knowing where they're at, maybe even.
Yeah.
And so it's really scary stuff. And yeah, we were just trying to learn more. Of course, 5-year-old Liam Ramos was one of these people that was detained down there. Yes, Grace, we see you here.
Yeah, she still isn't on, our guest. I just wanted to let you know. But what I think we're going to do is we're going to air part of what Tim Walz says. We weren't able to air that previously because of the Senate hearing. So we'll listen to that a little bit, and then we'll she is on, so just give me 1 second.
There we go.
And it's serendipitous timing. We're going to be bringing in Jane Grotman. She's the executive director of the International Institute of Minnesota, and she's going to be able to tell us all about this and more, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to hear what is this process like, and how do we assist these people that are going through it?
Yeah, without further ado, let's bring in Jane. Oh, we're going to wait here just a second. We see Jane there. She's about to join us now, and she should have all the answers to all these questions about detainees and their release and what that process is like and how we can get them back. Do we have Jane now? Yes, we do. Jane, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Jane, one question we kind of we started the segment off with is, what happens to these detainees that get flown down to Texas after they get released? What's next for them? What happens?
Yeah, so maybe starting with letting you know how they got arrested and detained. We've had several of our clients who are here in legal status. They're here as refugees. They wake up in the morning, they're getting ready to go to work, and their house is surrounded by ICE agents who are armed and have their guns drawn. And these are people that have no criminal record. So they get arrested and detained and then are quickly flown to Texas. And then after being there for an undefined amount of time and also complete lack of transparency about why they're there, how long they're going to be there, what the process is. They are eventually released because they're here in legal status. They're have committed no crimes. They shouldn't have been detained in the first place. And then they are released in the middle of a state in Texas where they've never been. And I would also add that they are not giving people back their documents once they release them. So people have no proof of ID. So it's very hard for them to figure out how they're supposed to get back to Minnesota.
That's just a damn shame, Jane. And I'm assuming
Yes.
you had an opportunity to talk to a lot of these people that have been detained. Kind of can you just tell us, like, relay some of the stories of what the treatment was like in these detention centers and when they were released?
Yes, I mean, the detention centers, the conditions there are very inhumane. We had one young man, 19 years old, and he, again, was here in legal status, had never committed a crime, very soft-spoken, gentle person. And he had been detained for quite a number of days. He asked very politely if he could have his documents back. And instead of getting his documents, he had 4 men enter his cell and beat him. And, he was in a lot of pain. He was bleeding. His shirt was all bloody. And there was no medical services given to him, no medical treatment. We've also had a story of a woman who we tell our clients to prepare that if they have medication, they keep their medication on them. Of course, their documents on them as well. We had a woman who was arrested. She had her medication. They took the medication from her and wouldn't give it back to her until she was having a seizure and foaming at the mouth. And then it was too late, so they had to take her to the hospital, and she was there for a long time because she had a very serious illness. So, there's food that is given to people that's moldy, to young kids as well. So the conditions are very harsh. And again, they're for people that are there in legal status. They've done nothing wrong. They have no criminal record. It's just a mystery as to why they're there in the first place.
Yeah, Jane, you bring up a lot of these people that are here legally and have no criminal records. These are refugees. Aren't refugees some of the most vetted immigrants into the United States in the first place?
Absolutely. They are the most vetted immigrants coming to the country. And I just also, they've had 2 different sets of biometric screenings, health screenings, at least 4 federal agencies that touch them before they arrive here. And all of that process is done overseas, often in a refugee camp, before they even arrive to Minnesota. And so these folks that are being arrested now have only been in the country for a year or 2. And so they have been very vetted, and why they need to now be detained and arrested is really unimaginable.
Jane, I mean, this is the $1 million question, right? And but we're all thinking it. How the hell is this allowed? How is this legal? How has this been able to take place for so long without anybody stopping it or stepping in?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is not legal. It is not legal. You cannot just arrest someone for no cause and provide them no due process, and then just release them and oops, okay. And no recourse and no amendments for the pain that you and the injustice that you've caused for people. So it is a mystery why. I mean, if their goal is to scare people, it is scary for people. And but they're in legal status. I think one thing we've learned from detainees is that they are trying to get people to self-deport. And so they are using, they're misleading people to try to get them to sign deportation documents, and which is also not legal. So, fortunately, the clients that we're following have not done that. But, you're in a very stressful situation. You don't know what's going on. You don't know why you're there. It's very scary for people. And I just want to remind people that the refugee program is a humanitarian program for people that have had to prove that they are the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. That is part of how you get refugee status. And so the folks that are coming here with refugee status have been through a lot of very trying things. And so it's a great thing as an American to have people come and to feel safe in your country. And you know, for people to feel like they have a place that they can move their life forward. And now that is no longer true. And I've been doing this work for almost 40 years. So that's been true for that time. And now it no longer is true for people.
Jane, right out the get-go, you said that when people are released, they're just let go in Texas. And we've heard stories of people that were at least flown back to Minnesota. But are you saying the majority of people that are detained in Minnesota and that get flown to Texas, they just get left in Texas with pretty much nothing, correct?
Yes, and the majority of the clients that we have seen that have been detained are in Minnesota, and all of them have been flown, with the exception of one, have been flown to Texas. And so, yes, they're released into, again, a state they've never been. They don't know where they are. They have to find a stranger on the street to figure out how they're going to get home, and to try to, if they're lucky, they have a cell phone that still has charge, so they can call someone. So we've had amazing stories, you know, of an employer who drove all the way down to Texas to get his employee because that's who this person called. Amazing. And then, you know, family members that are driving down to Texas to get people back. And then we're doing everything we can to communicate with people to help people fly back so they don't have to then be on a bus for 24 hours coming back to Minnesota.
It's just appalling, Jane. But luckily,
it's horrifying. It's terrifying for the people that we work with. It really is, and it's just horrifying that this can be happening in our country.
It's so horrifying, and it's just the fact that this has become the new normal, and I say that with air quotes because it's obviously and it's very far from normal. But the fact that this has been happening on a regular basis it's just absolutely appalling. But luckily, we got good people like you at the International Institute that are there to help. What are you guys doing to help these people?
So thank you for that. We're doing everything we can. So we're getting people back here, helping them get flights when they don't have documents, or getting someone to pick them up. And then once they get back here, we're providing legal service for them, and then also paying their rent, just because people have maybe lost their jobs or they haven't been able to work for the time that they're in detainment, and so they have rent that's due. We're delivering them food because also, you know, once people get released, they're still scared to leave their homes, as most immigrants and refugees are right now in our state. And I want to say again, even if you're here legally and you have no criminal record, you know, people are not leaving their homes because they have a risk of getting arrested, even though they've done nothing wrong. So, and then just, you know, visiting them at their homes to make sure they're doing okay. If there's mental health support that they need, getting them that. So just really anything we can do. You know, we've had support from the community to do that work, for which we're incredibly grateful to live in this community that's supporting people. But we're just trying to help people kind of get back to their lives as best we can in this climate.
Yeah, Jane, and you know, I don't know if there's other detention centers down in Texas outside of Dilley, but just from looking at a map of Dilley, Dilley is an hour outside of San Antonio. I mean, it's kind of like you said, it's middle of nowhere, really, and people are just kind of in a foreign state where people have never been to before, maybe without a phone or whatever. That that would certainly be scary to me. Yes,
absolutely, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Jane. We appreciate it. The executive director of the International Institute of Minnesota.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Those are tremendous insights right from her.
Yeah, you know, just harrowing stories from her, from Rep. Morrison earlier. It's just like Jane said, the fact that this is going on in our country. You hear stuff like this, and if you heard that out of context, you'd think, oh, that's somewhere else. That's not. No, that's right down in Texas, and it's people being taken right here from Minnesota. Like she said, people that are legal citizens, lawful citizens that have never done anything wrong, ending up in the most harrowing situation they've probably ever experienced in their life. So it's appalling.
Yeah, and going from the heroin situation in Texas, being flown from a heroin situation at the Whipple Building that we have just a few miles from where we're speaking to you right now. Like you said, we had the chance to speak to Representative Kelly Morrison, who got a firsthand account of that building. I think we're going to replay back that conversation after this break.
Yeah, stick with us right here on the afternoon shift. We'll be replaying that conversation with Representative Morrison in just a sec.
And we had the chance, a bit of an exclusive opportunity to speak to Representative Kelly Morrison.
Yeah, one of the few people that has been inside the federal Whipple Building in Minneapolis, which has been the headquarters of ICE here in Minneapolis.
Let's replay back that conversation from earlier today. Representative Morrison, thanks so much for joining us here on the afternoon shift. There's so much mystery behind what's inside the Whipple Building. I know you had the chance to visit and tour it on Friday. Can you just tell us what did you see inside there?
Yeah, well, and thanks for having me and highlighting this just incredibly important issue in Minnesota, certainly, but across the country. So I've been to Whipple 4 times now. The first time I went, I was denied entry. The second time I gave 7 days notice. I actually gave 8 days notice and was granted admission after waiting for an hour. And then I went and I joined the lawsuit. I joined 12 of my colleagues in a lawsuit challenging that 7-day waiting period, making the case that members of Congress need to be able to perform unannounced visits so that we can perform oversight of taxpayer-funded detention facilities. And so a temporary restraining order was granted. So the 13 of us now are able to make unannounced visits. So last Thursday night, as soon as I got back from DC, I went to Whipple, again, tried to deny my entry at the gate, sat there for, I think it was almost half an hour, with a very argumentative guard, and ultimately 6 ICE or DHS police officers showed up. I had the copy of the temporary restraining order. They took pictures of it, sent it to someone else who they didn't tell me about, eventually was granted entry. And then I went back the following day with my colleagues, Representatives Craig and McCollum. They were denied entry because they're not on the lawsuit. That was the rationale, and went in again. So my overwhelming reaction to being inside of Whipple is that these are unacceptable conditions for a lot of reasons. First of all, everyone is in leg shackles. It's very dehumanizing. It is cold. It is there's concrete floors. There are minimal access to food. They kind of have snacks that are offered if people ask for it. They have these sort of fake blankets, those sort of tinfoil blankets, and people sleep on the floor. They rationalize all of this as because Whipple is not intended to be a detention facility. It is not a detention facility. So they say that they are not, they don't have to follow the rules of detention facilities. So they send people out on an average, it sounds like, they get a little vague, but it sounds like 2 times a day to Texas, in some cases to Louisiana. And then I learned also still in some cases to third countries. Some people are deported directly from Whipple. As a physician myself, I have deep concerns about the humanitarian treatment of human beings. And I will say too, we now know there's a measles outbreak in Texas. Recently, I believe yesterday, there's now a tuberculosis outbreak being reported. There are no protocols for preventing spread of those very infectious diseases. There aren't basic medical protocols at Whipple. There was a nurse there when I was there. There is not a medical professional there 24/7. One of my visits, a nurse was there, and I asked what the screening process was for putting people on a plane to send them to a detention facility far away. And he said they ask if they have a cough, and that was the extent of it. So that just gives you sort of a little bird's eye view of the horrific and unacceptable conditions, in my view, in the United States of America. It needs to end right now. Operation Metro Surge needs to end, and ICE needs to get out of Minnesota. And, I want to add, Susan Collins, apparently, senator from Maine, was able to prevent ICE from doing a significant exercise or operation in Maine. Good for her. I want ICE and CBP out of Minnesota, but I don't want them to go to another state and inflict the harm that they're doing on our communities somewhere else in our country. So this whole operation needs to end right now before more damage is done to more human beings.
That's just absolutely sickening. I literally have a gut reaction to that, Representative. Thank you for sharing that, because that's important information to know, but just absolutely chilling, and it's just abysmal that people are going through that. I read an interview that you did after you had visited the facility, and you were able to speak with a couple of people in the facility. Just what did you hear from them, and what have you heard from other people that have been detained in the Whipple Building?
Yeah, this whole thing is gutting. There's no doubt about it. So in my first visit that I was granted entry, I was allowed to speak to two of the detainees. The first one was a woman who had just been returned from Texas, incidentally. And the minute that we were allowed to speak, she said, "They are being cruel. They are not treating us like human beings here." She said, "We slept on the concrete floor last night with no blanket. We were freezing. We were begging for a blanket, anything to keep us warm, and they declined." The other woman that I was able to speak to, I asked to speak to because she was alone in a cell, legs shackled. She looked distraught. She was crying. So I went in and we spoke Spanish, actually. She didn't speak English. It was not clear to me that the guards spoke Spanish or were able to communicate with her. And she told me that she and her husband had been taken that morning. They were with their 7-year-old daughter. The daughter was left behind with a friend. And she was, of course, distraught because she had been unable to speak with her daughter to make sure that she knew she was okay and taken care of, and that she understood where her parents were. She asked me to ask the guards if she was being taken to Texas that morning or what was going to happen to her. They either wouldn't or couldn't respond. It was horrifying and these are the only two that I've been able to speak to, and both of them described just unacceptable conditions. The next two times where I made unannounced visits, I was prevented from speaking with any of the detainees, which I think is noteworthy given my experience of speaking to just two.
Yeah. Representative Morrison, what's next in this case? I know this partial government shutdown, the funding for DHS expires on Friday. What are you hearing inside Congress from your colleagues over there? And what is next? You say you want ICE out of Minnesota. When do you think is a tangible date where that actually may happen?
There are negotiations going on right now, and I was heartened to see that Democratic leadership in both the House and the Senate have issued a series of 10 demands that they say need to be met before any Democrats, or at least the majority of Democrats, will be able to support a bill. I'm glad to see those. I would take it further because of my experience of being inside of Whipple now several times, and of being a Minnesotan and seeing and hearing about and experiencing what is happening in the streets of the metro area and across our state, frankly. I would like to see absolutely specific conditions for what detention conditions should look like. We need to have basic humanitarian care, medical care. We need to be meeting just the most basic standards for detention of human beings. We need to make sure that due process is being followed according to our Constitution. So there are some just really basic requirements for me, in addition to ending Operation Metro Surge. And I just want to remind people that the Republicans control the majorities in the House and the Senate, and they control the White House. They have made these decisions, they have made these policy decisions, and they can reverse them. So it's going to be incumbent upon certainly my colleagues in Minnesota. We have 4 members of Congress who represent Minnesota from the Republican Party, and I would call on them, and I have been calling on them, to start to speak up and protect our state from the humanitarian damage that's being done and also the economic damage that's being done, the small business.
That was Representative Kelly Morrison earlier today talking about her experience inside the Whipple Building last Friday.
Yeah, some really important stories being told from people that are seeing it firsthand and hearing it from people firsthand.
Yeah, and I think a point that you brought up earlier today, I think the national narrative and the national media has kind of moved on to other stories, but here it is still pressing for a lot of people, and it's still an ongoing thing that's part of everybody's daily life.
Yeah, but hopefully, fingers crossed if Governor Walz's words are to be believed. He said days, not weeks, not months, days he's expecting a significant ice drawdown.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have some news to report to you by the end of the week about that significant drawdown. We're bringing you all the way to the Fox 9 News at 5 o'clock. Kelsey Carlson, Simone Woolridge, they are at the desk, and we'll be back here on Wednesday.
Yes, sir. We'll be back here same time, same place as usual. We appreciate you. Whether you tuned in all the way from 3 o'clock to 4:58, or you just tuned in at 4:57, we appreciate you for spending a little bit of your day with us.
Absolutely. We'll have some more Olympics talk tomorrow, some more Black History talk, and all of the latest news and events that are happening across our state. So, we'll see you tomorrow, Max.
Yeah, signing off. I'm Max Fuller.
I'm Adam Lorenz.
Signing off for Grace Henry. The 5 o'clock news starts right now.